this state of mid, it tires me. But I guess this is what people wanted. Souls-likes and game from the Astro Boy series. Wait, Astro Boy? No, Astro Bot. Ah, Astro Bot, okay. But seriously, who even knows if this game is going to be good? I mean, sure it's promising, and sure it's tickling all of our nostalgia-gasms, but like, what if the game turns out to be mid? Like, state of mid? And as for the whole God of War Ragnarok game on PC, if this is what Sony's going for, considering that they learned absolutely nothing from the Helldivers 2 controversy, and let alone the Ghost of Tsushima requirement, I don't even think wanting Bloodborne on PC would be a viable option. Just get you a PS4 and shut the fuck up. This exclusives argument is really starting to annoy the piss out of me. Now, that being said, I have other bigger fish to fry, and that is the last hope of a good Streets of Rage game from SEGA themselves. Cue the fucking music. I fucking hate Streets of Rage 4. I love Streets of Rage 3. Streets of Rage 2 is overrated. Streets of Rage 1 is a decent game. Not just a game, but a decent game. As much as I love Streets of Rage Remake, even I have to admit that Bomberman Games kinda crapped on Streets of Rage 3, even though it is the sole ingredient into making what Streets of Rage is best known for. It's high-octane combat with some of the best music you could groove to while beating up thugs in the street. And the female thugs too. And everything in between. Well, it is Pride Month, so I guess it makes sense. Dark supremacy, motherfucker. Abhorrently clear, if anyone worth a goddamn has ever checked out my XCOM, I'm not really a big fan of Streets of Rage 4. I hate how Guard Crush Games basically took all of the soul out of Streets of Rage 3, injected Streets of Rage 2 into people's veins, and cranking up the bullshit to 11, and turning the progression from an actual decent consumer port without the arcade port in it, kinda like Guilty Gear, an actual arcade experience made just for the home consoles. Now, you have to remember that games like Streets of Rage were not very common back then, because most games of that caliber were usually seen at the arcade. I remember that SEGA themselves unveiled their own Streets of Rage, which is my last hope for a decent Streets of Rage game. Fighting Force came kinda close, but unfortunately it wasn't the real Streets of Rage 4, and this certainly is not the real Streets of Rage 4. It's also funny that in today's gaming landscapes, there are no more innovating games, so let's just remake the games from old. But wait, no, not like that. Even when Sega tries to do something different, what exactly is the problem with games like Crazy Taxi getting a soulless reboot but yet will consume the likes of Resident Evil 4 Remake or even the newly shown Silent Hill 2 Remake? I still stand what I said in my video prior, and no character, graphical presentation, or gameplay uplift will change my mind otherwise. You can literally play the original PC version of the game. I don't want to hear it. Or better yet, just remake the original. People really are in dire needs of remakes and remasters. The original Silent Hill is basically PlayStation exclusive. Why remake the game that you can play on other systems? Or PC, sorry. I'll never know. And don't tell me that you're stealing from Konami, when first of all, you probably don't even like Konami, and second of all, it's not like that playing the HD collection of Silent Hill 2 is going to do people any better favors. Sega's last hope for a Streets of Rage game, let alone the other games they announced, is surely within grasp. Most people probably just cry that Sega is on the decline because we haven't seen a Sonic game in forever, even though we literally just got Superstars, a game that basically tried to copy the success of New Super Mario Bros. And people Coomer baiting the fact that we got Fang in there again or some shit. At least I think that's his name. The dude from Sonic the Fighters. The game that's not even very good, by the way. And seeing as someone basically tried to shit on the game, or actually, not even just shit on the game, shitting on Crash Team Racing for the exact same premise is pretty funny to me. Since, last I checked, one can be enjoyed as a party game, the other was just basically a fucking Virtua Fighter ripoff and desperately trying to cash in on said success. Even Midway tried to do that shit too. And while it's probably not the only fighting game to do that, there are so few nickels I could count on the palm of my hand where fighting game makers, developers, whoever, try to copy their own formula so fucking much, they have to try so hard to reignite that bottle twice. SEGA might be able to do something good with this, and I hope I'll be proven wrong. And I just hope it doesn't get cancelled because of some bullshit. Considering people were fine with the likes of Advance Wars reboot camp being delayed, I guess we can wait for SEGA to cook. I fucking hate that slang, by the way. An actual Streets of Rage game that at least tries to embrace what made 3 so good. Be able to run with any character, removing the artificial time limit, increasing the speed to what is basically Street Fighter 2's turbo mode, except without, well, the hyper fighting nonsense. Having much more interesting characters. I'm sorry, I would always prefer to play as a giant robot dude than some wrestler who has literally no connection to the story. He's just there because, hell, why not? Even Streets of Rage 3, or at least the Japanese version, actually having stakes in there instead of just being the traditional old-school arcade game. You can play as Shiba, or Shiba, however the hell you say it, and everyone's favorite homosexual stereotype, Ash. Ash supremacy, motherfucker. Of course, there's the various Beats of Rage clones that came out following that game's success, and even Beats of Rage's own version of Streets of Rage Remake, which I did talk about in a highlight of mine, but I'm still going to stand by it that it's just nowhere near as good as Streets of Rage Remake. Yes, you can play as all of the enemies, and even some which I assume were from the Game Gear version, including the fucking Predator of all people, but it lacks the substance and let alone the actual content that keeps me wanting to go back to Streets of Rage Remake, and actually refining the characters and even sprites to make it feel like as if SEGA themselves worked on it. I still don't know why people think that Streets of Rage 3 is the worst trilogy out of the series. Like, people treat this game like it's Devil May Cry 2, or Dark Souls 2, or Donkey Kong 3, or any other game that just has a really shitty sequel or just a bad entry in the series. It's mainly to do with people thinking that the music is just not as good, which is completely subjective. But if people think that moving slow as molasses and being able to just do one-punch loops and shit is entertaining compared to the actual shit you can do in Streets of Rage 3, be my guest. I could also agree that the atmosphere in Streets of Rage 2 is a lot more interesting compared to the setting that's in Streets of Rage 3, but I personally rather have a game that refined its gameplay than to be stuck in the past. But what the fuck do I know? There are various ROM hacks of Streets of Rage 3 alone, which does include other things in there such as Playable, Max, and even Adam, trying to make it a light Streets of Rage remake. Although some of these are rather odd. There's also nowhere near as many ROM hacks to Streets of Rage 3 compared to Streets of Rage 2, which all they seem to do is just basically swap out sprites, which is a little silly. It's kind of surprising that there's no mega collection that has every one of these characters added into the supposed best game of all time. There's also the dilemma of just Streets of Rage 3 in general just being way neutered compared to what the Japanese version got, with Streets of Rage 3 changing the colors of the characters for some reason, changing Grand Opera to Bare Knuckle, which is a fucking nothing issue, but I'll digress. And of course, with video game rental markets at the time, increasing the difficulty tenfold and even making you not be able to finish the game if you play on easy mode because God hates you. It's not even the only game to do that shit. If people are gonna hate on Streets of Rage 2 because of that, you gotta hate on Twisted Metal 2 for doing the exact same shit. Might as well just put up this fucking sign and still call it one of the best games ever made. Or even Double Dragon 2, at least the American version, because the Japanese version sure as shit don't fuck around, and probably the better version for that alone if you ask me, considering the game literally cock blocks you unless you play in the hardest difficulty, or even blue balls if you play in normal mode, which they say, sorry, you beat the Shadow Brothers? Well, you gotta play in the hard mode to fight the real final boss. I don't know what else to really mention, to be honest. I just hope that SEGA actually does a good job with this game. I actually want them to make a good Streets of Rage game that will not only show that SEGA can make games that isn't just Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, but also just having a decent Streets of Rage game that I can actually enjoy until the end of time. Because Lord knows if they try to pull a Streets of Rage 4 again, I'm gonna be mad pissed. But if worst comes to worst, maybe people can make ROM hacks of Fighting Force. It did get a PC port after all, so nothing is ever impossible. And even Justin Bieber says otherwise. Never say never. Now get shot in the ghetto.
Because you look like a fag!